To call a military commander undefeated is difficult. Sometimes retreat is the correct maneuver. Other times you may have won a battle even when your country lost the war. Still, there are some people that historians consider worthy of the title undefeated. There have been many great military leaders across history, but to be able to call yourself undefeated is something incredible. Somehow, across history, out-of-the-box thinkers have time and again proven capable of victory, even in the face of terrible odds. These are the top 10 undefeated military commanders from history. Fyodor Ushakov. Perhaps the greatest naval general in the history of military warfare, Ushakov has the enviable claim of having never lost a ship in battle. Born in 1745 to rural nobility, Fyodor signed up for the Navy at the age of 16. By the time he was 20, he had commanded his own ship in the Black Sea as part of the Russian-Turkish War and was offered the chance to command Catherine II's ship. In 1783, Ushakov oversaw the building of a new naval base in Sevastopol before going out again into battle. Fighting against the Ottomans and then the French, Ushakov gained a reputation for aggressive tactics that focused on destroying flagships and never letting the enemy retreat. He was integral to the siege of Corfu and blocked French forces so that land units could arrive at the Italian coast safely. Pepin the Short. Also known as Pepin the Younger, the king of the Franks from 751 to 768 is one of the greatest commanders to take the throne. With close ties to the church and supported by the nobility, he became the first Carolingian king after forcing his brother out of power. There are few specific details about the battles led by Pepin, but his reign included aggressive expansion of the Frankish Empire, taking the Rhone Valley and all land to Bordeaux. By the end of his reign, Pepin had taken control of all that is modern France and parts of Italy, without a single military loss. Baji Rao, the 7th Peshwa, or Prime Minister, of the Maratha Empire, now a part of modern India. Baji Rao's exploits as a military leader are almost mythic in telling. When he took over his father's position in 1720, he did so recognizing that the Mughal Empire to the north was in disarray. Seeing an opportunity to defeat a weakened enemy, he began an aggressive campaign that would conquer a great portion of what is modern India and use tactics that would be studied for centuries to come. Baji Rao's success was primarily because of his ability to quickly move cavalry units long distances with little resources. Modern British General Bernard Montgomery was to later call Rao's ability swift and unpredictable movements a masterpiece of strategic mobility. Scipio Africanus. Scipio Africanus is best known for being about to defeat the great general Hannibal at the Battle of Zama, ending the Second Punic War. By this time, however, he was already known as a great military leader and lone fighter in his own right. During the Battle of Ticinus early in the war, Scipio Africanus charged a force of soldiers alone to save his father's life. After the massacre of the Roman army at the Battle of Cannae, the 25-year-old general took charge of the remaining forces and brought them back up to a fighting standard that would eventually win the overall war. John Churchill, Duke of Marlborough. John Churchill's career as a soldier and politician occurred over 5 separate monarchs, and his life included a stint in the Tower of London, the quelling of multiple rebellions, and involvement in others. Throughout this, Churchill gained recognition as an innovative military leader who moved away from siege warfare and into open ground battles in which his army could have the advantage. The Duke of Marlborough had many military successes before the War of the Spanish Succession, but it was his repeated victories there that cemented his reputation as a wartime strategist. Khalid ibn al-Walid. Khalid ibn al-Walid ibn al-Mughira al-Makhzumi was one of the military commanders in the service of Muhammad and played an integral role in the Ridda Wars, conquest of Mecca, and the conquest of the Levant. Khalid's first battles were against Muhammad at the Battle of Uhud. It was to be known as the only battle in the Muslim Quraysh that was lost by the Muslims and was primarily due to Khalid's superior tactics. However, Khalid came to find himself converting to Islam only 2 years later, and quickly accepted his role as one of Muhammad's closest military commanders and advisors. One of Khalid's greatest successes was at the Battle of Yarmouk, where the opposing army had up to 20,000 more men. With the advantage of higher ground, Khalid used his herds of camels to break the lines of the Byzantine fighters, captured the Ruqad Bridge in a nighttime operation, and drove a wedge between cavalry and infantry. While historians argue over how many of the exploits recorded about Khalid were accurate, there is no evidence that the commander ever lost a single battle, regardless of the army he was up against. Timur, the military leader that Marlowe would later immortalize as Tamburlaine, was the founder of the Timurid dynasty, which controlled Afghanistan, Iran, and a large part of Central Asia during the 14th century. Timur saw himself as the spiritual heir to Genghis Khan and was passionate about restoring the Mongol Empire to its former glory. He was known to massacre entire cities of civilians if they attempted to revolt against him, and some experts estimate that his military conquests lead to the death of up to 5% of the world's population at the time. Despite his cruelty against civilians, Timur has always been recognized as one of the greatest military leaders in history, as well as an intelligent world leader. Sargon of Akkad, also known as Sargon the Great, the ancient ruler of the Akkadian Empire, is quite literally a legendary figure. It is difficult to separate myth from fact. The former cupbearer of a Sumerian king, he later took the city of Akkad by force, beginning a reign that would last somewhere between 30 and 60 years. Alexander Suvorov. Alexander Vasilyevich Suvorov was the last generalissimo of the Russian Empire and Count of the Holy Roman Empire. During his time of service in the mid-18th century, Suvorov is said to have fought over 60 separate battles without losing a single one. His first battle was only at the age of 28, where he commanded 100 Cossacks, who took a garrison of Prussians. It was the tradition at the time to not attack until one had an idea of the number of enemies ahead. But Suvorov famously exclaimed, "We are here to fight, not to count," before taking his first victory. During the rest of the 7 Years' War, Suvorov made a name for himself, sometimes winning battles where his army was outnumbered 5-1. By the time he was 40, he had been promoted to general. Alexander the Great. The most recognizable name when it comes to undefeated generals is the leader of the ancient Greek Empire and self-proclaimed conqueror of the known world, Alexander the Great. Alexander had been tutored by the famed Aristotle and had been taught military skills by his father, Philip II of Macedonia. At the age of 16, Alexander drove the rebellious mighty from their lands, renaming the area Alexandroupolis. Following this, he joined his father in several battles. When Philip was assassinated, Alexander took the role of king at only 20 years of age and began a campaign of expansion that only ended at his death. Alexander's conquering extended as far east as the Baze River in India before his armies refused to travel any further, being so far from home and tired of their advancement. Babylonian calendars at the time would speak of Alexander, king of the world.